Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy. So talking, Scotty, about how relationships impact performance, I was thinking back to some good leaders that I've had in the past and what they did to make me respect them. The three things that come to mind is that they always had time for you. So they're always passing on knowledge or pushing you to be better, giving you feedback, giving you support and all that sort of stuff. Like, it never felt like it was a strain on them to get time from them. They were always probably giving you more than you thought you needed. Secondly, they did what's right. They always seemed to make the decision, whether it was a popular decision or not. And a lot of the times, the really hard decisions that you look at from the outside and go, that's going to piss some people off. The actual respect you have for them by making that decision, knowing that it's difficult, doing what's right was certainly a big one. But just the simple thing of they were a part of a team. They were very happy with just being a part of the team. They didn't need to be seen as being on a pedestal or up the front all the time or any of that stuff. They were just more than happy to be a part of the team and knew their role was to support that team instead of being up in front of it.
Yeah, I've had the same feeling and I can't really put words to it, but there is this sense of someone who is within your environment and they feel like they're a part of their team and they're contributing. And then there's this idea of like this distanced leader who, sits in the ivory tower and you never hear from them unless they want to bark commands sort of thing. But from what you're saying, my list of what I want from a leader is very similar, albeit a little bit more selfish. Like, one of the things that I look for and that I've had from what I consider to be good leaders are people who put time into me. So people who are invested in my development. As bad as that sounds, it is like, I don't want to stagnate and just stay at one level. I'm looking for people to teach me things so that I can grow and grow. Kindness is something that I look for. I don't like too direct of a personality. Someone who's, I can make a genuine relationship with, because that is something that I look for. Something which I don't like is just working with people who share the same patch of carpet with me. Like, for me, that seems like a waste of time. I want to get to know people and I want to form relationships with people. The third thing that I probably look for is someone who is insanely motivated, more so than me, because I consider myself to have probably the base level of motivation, like what is normal for everyone, which is I go to work for 8 hours and then I go home and I'm like, do I really have to go to the gym? And I struggle to like commit extra time to extra activities sometimes. So what I appreciate is a leader who has inherently an overload of motivation, someone who is just driven, who you feel like, they've got too much fuel in the tank. And sometimes when they're driving, it spills out and you drive by them and you start sniffing it, sort of thing. So, and I'm not ashamed to admit that my motivation level is pretty much standard. So yeah, I do look for someone who is driven and who can share their passion with me.
But that has a massive impact, right? Like, if you're around people that are lazy and don't have a lot of drive and don't do a lot, well, odds are that you're going to fall down closer to their level than the level you started at. And the complete opposite with what you're saying. So I like how you said selfish, because it is like, we're talking about the relationship.
Thank you.
Is that allowed? The relationship that you want with your leader, right? Like, and how that impacts your performance. So if you looked at like the energy side of things and that drive, there is so many benefits, not only for you personally, but because you're a part of that team. And if that benefits you and it's going to improve your performance, well, that obviously benefits the team. And then everyone else within the team as well, right? And it has a flow-on effect to them. So someone with high energy, getting things done, getting through a lot, like, selfishly, that feels great. It actually inspires me, it motivates me, it keeps me going. But the benefits for the team, and I suppose the point of what we're talking through is exactly that, right? selfishly, what do you want from a leader, and then how that affects the performance of the team. If everyone's happy within the team, and happy is not necessarily getting everything that you want, but if you feel accepted, you feel you're treated well,
Yeah.
you are getting something out of it. Like you spoke about, hey, that growth factor, like any good relationship's two-way, right? There's got to be equal parts flowing. If it's not, it becomes pretty toxic, right? Someone's taking advantage of someone else. So the fact that you're getting that out of it, the benefits of all that stuff that you're getting out of it is very positive for other team members and overall performance and output of that team.
Absolutely. And, the research would support it as well, that you get better performance from people when they're happier and you have a better relationship with them. You can't expect to just, bark commands at someone and do the bare minimum to establish a relationship with someone, then expect them to go above and beyond for you. It's such a weird thing to...
Well, yeah, like you probably work well. Like I've had a manager like that. You work well when they're watching, but they're not always watching.
Yeah,
and when they're not watching.
Second they walk past your office, you go on Outlook and you're like, oh, now where was that email? And then they walk past and you go back to bloody RuneScape.
Yeah. So like, they can't always be watching, right? So having that environment, so when that leader isn't there, it gives you a good indication of what that culture is like. But it's just being around people that you like being around. Like you don't waste your bandwidth on worrying about a relationship or what someone's thinking about you, or, hey, I don't like this person, or it pisses me off this happened, and why is this person doing this when they should be doing that? That's not right. All that sort of stuff and drama you waste time on, and you're not actually focusing on what you're there to do. You do want to be focusing on what you want to do as an individual, because that's a whole heap better than all the drama that you've got to think about.
Not to mention this idea of surface acting, right? Where we portray something on the surface which is different from what we believe internally.
So like masking.
Yeah, and that is hard work. And I've been in environments like that before, where you spend an enormous amount of energy portraying this version of yourself that you're not, and you're constantly keeping tabs on, oh wait, did I say this or did I say this? Am I supposed to do this or do this? By the time you get home, you just want to be alone, and you're like, oh, I can finally be myself and no one has to judge.
Well, yeah, that effort of, getting out of the car or walking into your workplace, right?
Yeah.
When you're in that situation, you've actually got to get yourself right. And then when you leave and get in the car or walk out, it's like, a weight is being lifted, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, like you said, it's just tiring. And you're wasting so much energy on putting on a front that you could be putting into something else, something a lot more positive.
And I don't think that sort of relationship organically happens overnight. Like I don't think it's ever the case where you would go into an organization and there's already that established culture of, hey, you can be yourself here. I think everyone's going to walk into that environment and still be a little bit reserved and give face to this portrayal of themselves that's not really them. But as long as you have that culture and that environment so that people are allowed to be themselves, I think those relationships will just organically form.
You mentioned about some of the things that you look at and you've respected in a leader or leaders that you've had. What are they like? How did they go about building that relationship? So for instance, you say about, okay, they gave time and they invested in you. I walk into your workplace, first day on the job.
Yeah.
I don't get to know you. I don't do anything. But then I start passing on knowledge to you.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a few things that pop up into your head. It's like, oh, okay, that's nice.
I'm suspicious.
So 100%. Like you're at a point where it's like, oh, you could be, oh, that's nice. They want to help. But then I'm suspicious. Yeah. Like they just met me. How do they even know that I'm
This is going to sound so cliche. And I don't think a lot of people think about this enough and actually consider this. But I think just being yourself is number one for me. Like the amount of relationships that I've gotten into, which I enjoyed, I've always gone back to the beginning and I've realized that person was just themselves in the moment. And that's all it took. And it, like I say, it's a cliche. We all say to ourselves, oh, just be yourself. And I don't think anyone really takes on that advice like wholeheartedly and like the power of being yourself.
Well, I think it's hard, right? Like, and I want to ask you, like, what are some markers
Yeah.
where you can tell someone is just being himself? And I'd imagine one of them is that, hey, someone's vulnerable and is okay with acknowledging that they make mistakes, right? Well, that's not easy, particularly if you've got some insecurities that are ingrained from your childhood or whatever, right? There's no way you're walking in and being yourself. I'm putting on a front.
Interestingly, not necessarily the case with vulnerability. Like for myself, people know that I'm like a bit of a oversharer. And so I am very vulnerable. And when I am consistently vulnerable, people see that consistency and they just make the assumption that, oh, this person's genuinely vulnerable and they are being themselves.
Because there's some consistency there.
Yeah, like I've had a leader before who was absolutely not vulnerable and they were very like reserved and closed off. And that was just them, whether that be from, like you discussed, their childhood or, past environments. The consistency in their lack of vulnerability was what showed me though that they were like being genuine.
Okay.
And just little things like in that particular relationship, someone who was a younger leader, they didn't pretend to be, more than they were, that they were in their 20 years old, but mentally in their 40s. Like they were still just into footy and they're into cars and things like that. And hey, look how big my subwoofer is in my car, sort of thing. So it made sense to me that, someone who is in this part of their life would be interested in those things. They're not trying to be better than they are, more mature than they are. They're just themselves.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, being yourself, it may be a little bit more like, hey, they're not putting on a front.
Yeah.
Because if someone is consistently over the top in regards to telling you how good they are, what they've achieved as a leader, what they've done in their life, and how fantastic everything is and all that sort of stuff. Okay, well, they're being themselves, supposedly, right? Because it's consistent. But you're probably not buying that. I wouldn't imagine that, you'd be the type of personality to go, okay, that's someone that I would respect and that's what I want from the relationship.
Absolutely. And the thing that I think is understated about the power of being yourself and what that means for forming relationships is that, you risk rejection, because if you're yourself and someone decides that is not for me, well, then you've got to face a bit of rejection and go, oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough. But the flip side of that is that you're yourself, someone doesn't reject you and they accept you. And then you can just drop this whole facade, which is consuming our energy, and just get on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, well, if someone's got a front, right, like it's a good point. Someone's got a front, they're putting all their energy, and it links back to what we're talking about with someone having a mask and putting on this front of what they're about. If they're putting all their energy in that, well, that's where it's going. And then you don't have any time to actually ask your team to be thoughtful about what your team wants, what they do in their pastimes, spark up that relationship, because you're too focused on how you look instead of, hey, what I'm there to do as a leader.
And like I said earlier, you're never going to be in the position where you can just jump into an organization and just feel like you can be yourself, but you can set yourself up so that you have the best chance possible just by being yourself in an interview, for example. So I've had two pieces of conflicting advice, which is in an interview, be yourself, and in an interview, don't be yourself. And I see both standpoints, right? In one aspect, you want to be the best version of yourself. You're trying to fool someone into thinking that you're this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And in this version where you're yourself, you're kind of just like portraying who you are and being honest and vulnerable about who you are. You might get the job a majority of the times if you're not yourself and you're just pretending to be this awesome person who loves communicating and whatnot. But then you go into that environment and you have to start off with that front. You've got to put on that mask, and you're not able to just hit the ground running because a lot of your energy is dedicated to putting on this version of yourself that you're not. Whether I prefer the method of, I'm going to go into an interview, be myself, maybe not get the job, but I'm just going to keep rolling the dice until I get into an organization where they accept who I was in the interview. I start in that organization and I can use as less energy as possible, putting on this mask and just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about someone wanting to give time to improve you and all that sort of stuff. But I suppose the step before that is building that relationship. You were talking around being yourself,
Yep.
not having a front, not masking, and all that sort of stuff. I think we both said, someone who treats you well. What are I think about like the little things. If I look back, it's just like, okay, the simple things, and it gets missed so much. It's like actually asking someone how they're going, saying good morning.
Yeah.
Seeing someone for the first time in the day and not just putting your head down and walking past them because you don't work with them. It's just like, you can tell a lot by a culture just if that happens.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, well, hey, how you going? Friday before, what do you got planned for the weekend? On the Monday, hey, how did you end up doing that? Sparking that relationship and actually caring. It just sends that message that, hey, I'm accepted for who I am and people want to get to know me.
And kindness is different for everyone, right? For me personally, if I make a mistake, for an example, and someone's very soft on me, and instead of scolding me, they're more nurturing, like that's considered kindness for me.
You've been treated as a person, right? And it gets back to that. It's just like common human decency that if you walk past someone, like you should say hello if you haven't seen them for the first time in a day, right? There's that sort of stuff that goes into it. I think about it. It's just like, okay, well, hey, I haven't seen you today at all. And you've just walked past and haven't even acknowledged because you're too busy and what's in your head is too important just to say hello to someone. It doesn't cost a thing, right? And it's one of those things where it's the things that don't cost are the most valuable. The power of going out and you're leading a team and the first thing you do, you're not getting a coffee, you're not checking emails, you're not logging into a meeting, is you physically go and say hello to everyone. That holds a lot more power and weight.
Well, it kind of shows where your priorities are at, right?
Yeah. And I look at it from a point of view, okay, well, hey, I'm leading a team. Well, my position exists because there is a team. And if there wasn't a team, the leadership position wouldn't exist. And yes, there's all different things that go into it and, as part of the role and, and decisions you need to make and reporting you've got to do and so forth. But the team is the priority. So, hey, doing that first thing instead of at the end of the day, send some clear messages. And like you said, over a period of time, consistently, little things like that, people are going to be vulnerable with you. They're going to respect you. And it's just something so small.
Yeah. And it has a lot of impact.
What other things? Is there anything else that sort of comes to mind that you've found that leaders have done that has really built that relationship for you?
Yeah, look, this is not completely black and white. It's quite gray because it's a part of it is, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because if you have a good relationship and someone gives you feedback, you're more likely to take on that feedback because you assume that they're coming from a place of respect. If someone gives you feedback and you haven't already established that relationship, you automatically have these like suspicions in your head, like you don't know them well enough. So are they just giving me feedback because it makes them feel good to be right and for me to be wrong? Or do they just like telling people off or, they just want to be the smart person in the room? Like, are they actually giving me feedback? What is their motive here?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, like I do this exercise with clients from time to time where it's giving feedback and the effectiveness of it, right? And I get the group to think about a leader that they've had, that they've respected and they admire and they like working with and being a part of the team with. Think about them, get a face in your mind, and then also the flip side, the worst one you've ever had, the one you never ever want to see again, right? Then think about both them people giving you some confronting but honest and relevant feedback is that, hey, your performance isn't up to scratch. I really need you to focus on this and be better here and improve here. And you're right.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to take it in two different ways.
Yeah.
Like one way from the leader you respect is like, yeah, okay, yeah, cool, I get it. And then you can go straight to, okay, well, what are your thoughts? Like, what, I get that you're saying this, but how can I improve? Or like, I find this, you can be vulnerable and so forth. Whereas it's the person you don't respect.
Oh, you automatically go to conspiracy mode.
Well, yeah. And it's just like, who are you? Like, what? You worry about yourself. You didn't even want to talk to me. And now you want to, give me feedback. Like, you got to earn that right to give feedback. And that's the point of the exercise, right? Is earning the right to give feedback is important. And if there isn't a relationship, a good relationship, don't even bother.
Look,
You're doing the relationship. You're
in a
more
perfect
harm.
world where everyone's robots, you're paying them money to do a job, so they should just take the feedback, right? But I think it's irrational to assume that humans are going to be rational all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it gets to the point of what we're talking about. If you've got a healthy relationship with the people that you lead, you're going to be able to produce so much better outcomes within that team.
yeah, absolutely.
But it is funny that, like it's the exact same feedback and it's just from two different people and just the complete,
Opposite. Yeah. Context is everything.
It's funny. Other things that mess up relationships.
Like for me, the opposite of being themselves. Like I can, I mean, not just me. I think everyone can sniff out someone who isn't a genuine person. And then we all use empathy, right? We put our minds in the minds of other people to assume what their motives are in a certain situation. And if we use empathy and go, oh, well, their motivation seems to be for my benefit or for the benefit of the team, then we're more likely to take that on board. But if we put ourselves in their heads and go, they're just doing this to satisfy their own personality traits. This is someone who just feels good about being right. They love being in power. They're doing it for the money, whatever. If we suspect those things, we're already going to give up on a relationship with these types of people. And like I said, we don't assume that people can't sense that, because
You pick it up real quick.
they do. I've worked in teams before where I've had leaders like this who, you get a sense that they're not in it for the team and they're in it for themselves. And the entire team know about it. They all get the same feel of, yeah, this person doesn't care about the team. They care about themselves. And the people who thrive in that environment are the people who just acknowledge that, but then just suck up to that person.
Yeah.
They go, they use the power of empathy and go, oh, this person cares about themselves, so I'm going to give them what they want, and this is going to
help me.
But then the rest of the team is like, oh God, the suckhole's back.
Kill me now. You can just tell a lot by what people do and their actions and all that sort of stuff, and it easily gets glossed over. And it's like we discount our intuition, right? Because you can pick it up real quick. You've got someone who wants to talk to you about everything they've done. They're possessive with language. My team, my operation, my facility. Instead of, well, it's not really yours. It's not your name up in the building. Yeah.
Our team.
Yeah. Well, it sounds weird like that. But, that possessive language, always wanting to talk about what they've done, more inclined to take accolades than pass on recognition is another big one. And it's just how they interact. Like we were talking about before, saying hello in the morning. Do they want to do that? Or do they just come and talk to me when they need something, right? And you can fall in the trap too with that. Is just like, oh yeah, hey Scotty, how you going? Oh yeah, good. Yeah. Well, I don't really care. I need you to go and do this. That doesn't count. It's got to be, there's got to be separate conversations. You deal with the human being first, right? And then that operational / team environment of what's got to happen in the particular role happens, right?
Yeah. And sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say the consistency of time is important for that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, just because I don't come out and say hello to you one day doesn't mean that, oh yeah, you're done. You're dead to me.
I have an example of a scenario where actually a relationship has kind of been ruined for me, where you get to know someone on a more, genuine level, and you find out, hey, this person's not exactly extroverted. They're more introverted, and they're not necessarily someone who's very vocal in a team environment. And then they become a leader themselves, and all of a sudden they're so animated. And, I look at that and I start to distance myself from that person, because I look at what they were and then what they are now. And I think to myself, well, there's no consistency in what they say and what their behavior shows. So I don't understand this person. Are they real? Are they not real? Like, what are their motives? I just don't know. So then I just withdraw from that relationship. And I think that's a real killer, is when, that point where you put on a front in the beginning, or you're honest in the beginning, and then halfway through you kind of flip the script and show like your true colors. But yeah, it's it's something that for me personally breaks relationships for me is just seeing inconsistency in personality types.
It just gets back to what we spoke about previously in our first sort of episode, was just around the motives of people.
Yeah.
Like through those actions, and you get a really good, clear understanding of what someone's motive is.
Yeah.
So for instance, if they're investing time in you, they're wanting to get to know you, you're not just a number, you really feel like you're accepted and you're part of the team in that respect. Like you can understand what that leader's motive is. On the flip side, if like what we were saying around, hey, they're wanting all the accolades, they only want something from me when they need something. Well, hey, it's not about the team. It's about them, right? So you can pick that up real quick. A good little exercise is to ask your team on what they actually want from a leader and what they respect. And it's not a watertight experiment, but you certainly do get some trends that pop up. And a couple of things that never come up are, I want a leader and I respect a leader who is a fantastic group presenter.
Yeah,
Public speaker, they are just super fluent and slick, and that's why I love them, because of that. Doesn't come up. People don't care about it, right? And then the other one was around, hey, I want someone who's always right, knows everything. Another one that never comes up.
Yeah. And there's a balance to that, right? Because there is a level of competency which you have to display as a leader. But at the same time, you can dig yourself in a rut by just trying to be right all the time.
Yeah.
You can, again, show people your true colors and what your motivations are. Your motivations are to do what is objectively right for a good outcome, but what makes you feel good, which is being right. I think we've talked about this before, where if you make enough mistakes as a leader, you can undermine
you got to know something,
your
right?
competency. If you're just like mistake after mistake after mistake, particularly if you're not doing anything about it and you're just going, oh, what do I do? Like people are going to look at you and go, oh,
and I
do better?
It's a great point, right? Because from a public speaking point of view, you still got to be able to do it. There are times where you need to present to groups, and no one needs that person to be a politician and super polished. It's not what they want. You still need to be able to do it. As much as you might dread it and fear it, you still got to be able to do it, right? And then the same, like you got to know something to be a leader. You don't have to know everything, but if you don't know everything, okay, well, it's like, how do you get the answer? Do you work with the team? Do you collaborate? Hey, what are you thinking here? That's what people want. They want to feel accepted. They want to feel like what they think matters.
I think it's also an important development point for people. And I'm someone who's benefited from this before, which is getting that vulnerability from someone of, well, I'm a leader and I don't know what to do, but this is how I'm going to approach it. And you learn from that. You go, oh, well, this person didn't have the answer here, but they showed me what to do in a scenario where they don't have the answer and how I can remedy things. And, we do this with our children all the time, is that we purposely make mistakes so that we teach our kids, you can make mistakes, just keep trying. Sort of.
Yeah, well, you're not giving them the answer to the math equation. You're just giving them the framework of what that equation is and how to figure it is, right? Dealing with those poor relationships you mentioned earlier, just around, okay, well, you can play to what that leader wants that maybe is there for themselves, and that some personalities get, that's their main drive. They enjoy that. But for a lot of people, dealing with someone like that can be really, really difficult, and working through that. And you can fall into the trap where you stop being yourself. You stop being vulnerable as as someone within a team, because that leader obviously can't do it themselves, right? Which can be really hard. And I don't know, like it's just a tough spot to be in there.
It's so dark because depending on the context of your situation, I mean, wouldn't it just be nice if we could all just say, you know what, if this environment doesn't suit me, I'm going to go skip off into the fairyland and whatever. But the truth is, like, some of us have mortgages and kids, and like we need this job.
So I've got to find a way to make it work.
Yeah, and I don't have direct influence of who gets to be my leader. So I've yeah, I've got to make this work for me. And there are like scenarios where you see people going down, like some people like myself, I'm the kind of person who just withdraws and doesn't do the best I can. Some people will go, well, I'm just going to change, like, chameleon soul and just change my skin to be beneficial for this person. It's
Yeah, and look, a couple of probably traps I've fallen into is just being very judgmental.
Yeah.
And maybe being a little bit too high on standards that I expect from leaders that I've had in the past. So it's, hey, oh, they're the leader, they need to have it sorted. They should be good at this. How do I know this and they don't know this? You get into that thought process and it all may be accurate, but it's not helpful, right? It's not going to help. It's not going to help the situation whatsoever. Well, that's what I've found the hard way. And there's been a few times like that. But then also too, the other point is just around, okay, well, you can fall into the trap of, hey, they're the senior person, they're the leader, they're the ones that should be making this better, not me. And that's up to them.
Yeah.
In the end, you're the one who suffers. So if you want the outcome, you've got to take the ownership of the situation and see what you can do about it. Just blaming, pointing the finger and not doing anything isn't going to change a thing. Taking some ownership, seeing what you can do. And each situation, there's different ways to deal with, and it's not something that you necessarily can go into, because it depends on the particular situation, but there's always something that you can do.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is influencing outcomes, right? Where you don't have complete control over the situation. So instead, what you need to do is go about ways, be proactive, and try to get a good outcome regardless of the amount of control you have of the situation.
Yeah, it's just getting away from being a finger pointer. Like as people, like we just fall in the trap. It's like, hey, just because there's a leader doesn't mean they're the only ones that need to display leadership qualities. Like you're within a team, you still got to lead yourself, and you got to be a proactive, part of that team, and you've got to show good leadership from your own self. So like that's an important one. Is like, okay, well, hey, I'm not just going to point the finger and say, hey, they're the problem. What can I do to change the situation? And if I look at some poor relationships I've had in the past, it's like, well, you want to sort of get to know them, right? And I don't know, you see some people like just in life and stuff like that. You see people that you go, okay, I don't know that person, and I know I don't like them already. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like them, right? But then you actually spend some time with them and get to know them, and lo and behold, hey, they're not as bad as what you thought.
I mean, like it's just stereotyping, right? And what would psychology say about stereotyping? It's functional, but not perfect.
Yeah.
You get it right
sometimes,
but sometimes you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the cost of having a brain that needs to work in an environment where you have to be social with so many hundreds and thousands of people.
And I think that judgmental side of things that, like I said, I've fallen into a trap with previously is like, you got to balance that. It's good to have. You want to be looking at things constructively and not discounting your intuition and picking up on things, both for, hey, to understand the person, but to also self-improve. It's like, hey, when someone does that, it comes across like that. It's not their intent, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I probably need to be mindful of that for myself and my own development, and understanding that, okay, well, that could be misconstrued as something that I'm not really setting out or intend to portray.
The thing that helps me in this scenario is for me to remember that, like, not everyone lives by my standard. Like, I have a certain standard, and if I'm the leader, I get to implement a certain standard, right? But if I'm reporting to someone, it's hard for me to impose my standard on someone else.
Yeah, it's funny that we do that, right? It's like, hey, it's a reflection of them, not on me, which is cool. But then what do you do with that? Is it like, okay, do I fall to their level and then not be a good leader and finger point and be judgmental and not actually take ownership of the situation? Or do I do what I would expect myself to do? It's like you get a get out of jail free card from adhering to some standards that you should have just because someone's not up to scratch.
Yeah.
Which isn't right.
In terms of like leadership, it's hard to say what it is that everyone wants from a relationship, and that there's a set standard of what makes a good leader. Because it's going to be different for everyone. Like, we're talking about relationships, right? And how like forming good relationships is important and improves performance and things like that.
Depends on the person.
But then we got to remember that there are some people who just are uninterested in forming relationships with, like, they're at their limit. they've already got so many friends outside of work, and they're not really looking for that in the workplace, and they're just there to make dollars. So then,
Yeah, but look, I don't think with what we're sort of saying is around, hey, you need to be super tight with someone to have a good relationship. A good relationship doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be catching up on weekends, obviously. And I know that's not probably what you meant, but it's probably a good point to make is that people just need to feel like that you care.
Yeah.
Because you treat them well and you want to give them some time, and you are someone that sees that they're an important part of the team.
Yeah.
And it's not just, hey, I'm the leader and I'm here to get what I want out of it. And okay, the team, they just do their thing and they're paid to, and that's what they should do. So there's sort of like a differentiation
absolutely.
there.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Which is like, I don't know, like the time thing's a big factor. Is that you got to be, if you can live by the fact of, hey, my leadership position exists because of the team, you will automatically want to give time to the team. And whether you're building relationships, getting to know them, passing on knowledge and helping them to grow. And a lot of the times where, leaders and coaches that I've had, they haven't actually spent a heap of time telling me all the stuff that they've learned, but it's just set some clear boundaries for me. Hey, this isn't where I think you're capable of getting to. I believe that you can get to here. I may not necessarily have thought that, but the power of then giving that a go because someone else believes in me and then actually fulfilling that strengthens that relationship even more. And that's the great thing about, I suppose, building a relationship to get the trust so you'll actually get to the situation where you can support the people within your team to improve, right? And that's reciprocal. Like if you can get to the point where that relationship is at that standard where you built that trust and you can give that feedback and then they listen to that feedback and it actually works for them, well, that builds that relationship even further, right? You were sort of saying is like, okay, if I've got a good line manager, I work at this rate. I've got a bad line manager, I work at this rate. Like, what do you reckon the percentage degradation in performance would be for you?
It's night and day. I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but I'll give you an example. I don't like putting percentages on anything. But
I'll put it on there for you then.
Yeah, okay. If I'm working 8 hours a day, I will be at my limit under bad supervision. If I have good supervision, on the other hand, I'll work 8 hours a day and I'll be inspired to work another 4.
Okay. Yeah. If you've got that right environment.
If I've got that right environment.
Okay.
So
you can put a percentage on that. There's math involved.
Yeah, but that's just quantifying it via how long I'm willing to do work.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but I don't think it paints the whole picture.
No, it's a good point. But it's just that whole thing that, like what you're discussing, and I've certainly found it, is that having that relationship with your leader, whether that be a line manager or a coach, where there's that trust and relationship there, and that you can actually feel that they're invested in seeing you do well. The potential for that performance is just so high compared to the flip side of that. And that's the important thing. It's just like people don't give it the time. And, having coach sides and led large teams, when I was younger, I would look at coaches and leaders and go, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that judgmental sort of thing that you fall into the trap of when you're younger. But then you actually become a coach and you run a large team and lead a large team. You understand just of all the different things that pull you away from your core role within the team. And that can be really difficult. So for instance, leading an operation, it could be just the admin component, the reporting, the working with support officers, getting things for your line manager. There can be just a number of things, putting out bushfires that pop up operationally, take you away from proactively giving time to your team. And it's one of those things that you can lose it in the short term because you've got other things that are more pressing. But longer term, the effects it has on your culture is really detrimental. But it happens, and it can be hard to juggle it all. And the same from a coaching point of view. It's just like you've got lots of stuff going on. The important thing that becomes clear once you put yourself in that position and you look back at your judgments previously is just around, hey, I'm looking at my leader and saying, hey, he should be doing this, she should be doing that. Why aren't they doing this? They're looking down or to the side or within the group, and there's 20, there's 10. Like for me, there's 1. For them, there's 20 or 10 that they've got to pass on their time and give time to, right? Which obviously mathematically you can understand, that's for sure.
So then what do you think, because I think it's relevant then to ask the question, well, as a leader, how many team members should you be supporting at one time? Because I've heard numbers thrown out which are like, you know, contrary to each other. You should only have 6 direct reports, or NVIDIA CEO who's saying, well, I have like 100 people reporting to me, or some number like that.
But it probably depends on the team and how competent they are within their roles as well. And it also depends on what they're doing in the operation and the environment they're in. Like if it's a full-on growth environment where output is 20% year on year and really aggressive growth, well, people are going to be out of their comfort zone. So you're going to have to give them a lot more support, and you got to assist and guidance, right? So how much time depends upon, like if you're just pretty stable operation, pretty stable team. We're not looking at growing. We're not looking at changing too much. And hey, the team is self-sufficient. They don't need a lot. I've spent 3 years with this team. We've already got good relationships. There's already that trust and everything like that. Well, hey, you could say that you can have a lot more than 6, or, you know, the magical number of 7, or whatever they talk about.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
But that just depends. That you could have a really young team that, for whatever, with turnover or, hey, you know, growth within a business, is that, hey, we need more leaders or we need more team, and hey, you've got to develop them, right? That can be, it's really dependent upon that. But yeah, they say like 6 or 7, but it does depend.
Yeah, okay.
But I think you get a feel on, depending upon the situation, of just how much time. But you want to be able to spend time with your team and build those relationships, help them to grow. And it's like that scenario of, you could look at it, and I know we give these people a bit of a hard time with what we've been talking about. It's like, hey, my leadership capability is a reflection of the perception that I give out by talking about everything I've done and not giving recognition to others, just taking acknowledgement and all that sort of stuff, and very much based upon themselves and what they can get out of the role. That perception being the driver on their leadership capability, compared to the flip side of, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to build relationships, grow trust, and then help improve the team. And then what they produce and what they are able to do will be a reflection of my leadership capability, which is a really nice way to look at your impact on people as a leader. So probably some key points is that time aspect and making sure that you're giving time. But it arcs back to our previous episode, and there's a reason why we've done it this way, right? Motive. What is your leadership motivation? And then that will dictate whether you are going to build relationships and whether you are going to have strong trust with your team, and if you are going to give time to make all that happen. That motivation is really important. What we'll go through in the next episode is around improving performance and some ways to go about that. But a lot of it is going to be around improving capability, so that improves performance and output.
Okay, perfect.